hear the name all the time on the news, usually followed by words like tension or conflict. We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. But what exactly makes this one little strip of water so incredibly important? Why can it literally send shivers through the entire global economy? Well, let's dive in and break it down. So let me ask you a quick question. If you had to guess the most critical shipping lane on the planet, what would you say? Maybe the Suez Canal or Panama? And yeah, those are absolutely vital. But when it comes to the energy that powers pretty much everything we do, there's one choke point that is king. And there it is, right here. You're looking at a narrow waterway literally sandwiched between Iran to the north and a little piece of Oman called the Masandam Peninsula to the south. This is the one and only gateway connecting the Persian Gulf to the rest of the world's oceans. It's the strategic heart of the whole region. Now, if you take away only one thing from this, let it be this. It is the only way out by sea. There's no other route, no detours, no backroads. That simple geographical fact makes it one of the most essential, and you guessed it, most vulnerable, arteries on the face of the Earth. Okay, now let's look at the actual dimensions here. At its narrowest point, the strait is only 24 miles wide. But for the massive supertankers that have to navigate it, it gets even tighter. They have to stick to two designated shipping lanes, one going in, one going out, and each of those lanes is only 2 miles wide. That is an incredibly tight squeeze with virtually zero room for error. So, what is actually moving through this global artery? Why all the fuss? Well, it's not just about everyday cargo. It's all about energy. And the numbers, well, they're just staggering. Get this. A full 25% of the world's entire seaborne oil trade is funneled through this one choke point. Just let that sink in for a second. 1 out of every 4 oil tankers on the planet has to pass through this single narrow strait. And it doesn't stop with oil. 20%, that's 1/5 of the world's liquefied natural gas, or LNG, also has to travel through this exact same passage. To put a dollar amount on it, back in 2018, the oil passing through the strait was worth about $1.2 billion every single day. And you can bet that number is even higher today. This chart really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? That one slice, that 25%, that's the Strait of Hormuz. The other 75% is every other maritime oil route in the world combined. It's a really stark visual of just how concentrated, and therefore how fragile, our global energy supply chain truly is. So when you cram that much economic value into such a tiny geographical space, it's really no surprise that this little stretch of water has a very long and very tense history of conflict. Its importance is exactly what makes it a constant flashpoint. I mean, the timeline of conflict here is just intense. Back in the 80s, the Iran-Iraq war spilled over into what was called the Tanker War. By 88, the U.S. Navy was in direct clashes with Iranian forces. And things have never really cooled down, with more attacks in 2019 and a major crisis kicking off in 2026 when Iran threatened to shut the whole thing down. And the rhetoric has always been just as heated as the action. This quote from Iran's army chief back in 2012 is a perfect example of the kind of high-stakes warnings that have defined this region for decades. It's a direct challenge, basically saying, this is our backyard, stay out. So when we hear these threats about closing the strait, what does that actually mean? How could a country like Iran realistically shut down a waterway that is so critical to the entire world? Well, the answer is what military experts call asymmetric tactics. See, Iran knows it can't go toe-to-toe with a superpower like the US in a traditional naval battle. So it's gotten really good at turning the strait's own geography into a weapon. They have a massive arsenal of naval mines, swarms of small, fast attack boats, powerful anti-ship missiles on the coast, and now even drones and explosive remote-controlled boats. And this really highlights two completely different ways of thinking about naval power. The U.S. relies on overwhelming conventional force, aircraft carriers, destroyers, you name it, to guarantee the seas stay open. Iran's goal isn't to win that fight. Their goal is just to make it so dangerous and so unpredictable to pass through that shipping companies and their insurers decide the risk is just way too high. And you don't even need an actual closure to see the impact. Just the threat of disruption sends immediate shockwaves across the globe. A crisis in February 2025 caused a 6% jump in oil prices. The 2026 crisis saw an 8% spike almost overnight. These aren't just abstract numbers. This translates directly into higher prices at the gas pump, and for goods for everyone, everywhere.
So, with so much writing on this, the next logical question is obvious. Can't we just go around it? Are there any alternatives that could make the world less dependent on this one incredibly volatile choke point? And there have been some massive engineering projects to try and do just that. The UAE built the Habshan Fujairah pipeline to pump its oil overland, completely bypassing the strait. Saudi Arabia did something similar, building pipelines to carry its crude oil west to the Red Sea. The goal is simple: get the oil to the global market without ever having to sail through those dangerous waters. But, and this is a really big but, here's the reality check. The numbers tell the whole story. About 15 million barrels of oil move through the strait by ship every single day. Those two major pipelines combined, their total capacity is just over 3.5 million barrels. They definitely help, but they are a drop in the ocean compared to the sheer volume moving by sea. So that leaves us with the big final question. After all the pipelines, all the naval patrols, all the diplomatic maneuvering, is the Strait of Hormuz any less important today than it was 50 years ago? The answer, for now at least, is a resounding no. The world's economic stability still flows through this single, fragile, 24-mile wide choke point.